Hey everybody, welcome back to Five Boys in a Business, a podcast where we talk about our business, family, and the many shenanigans involved. You can catch us most Mondays around 10:30ish or so, and you can check us out on all the podcast channels: iTunes, Spotify,
Google
Podcasts. And if you ever need any special ASVC merch, don't forget to check out the merch store at asvcmerch.com. Now, today, I am joined with a very special guest that I'm super excited to have here today. Richie's like, I'm never going to get a word in edgewise. And it is my sister, Missy McCracken Dawson. And I'm going to let Rich do her bio because I would just keep going on and on for probably the whole hour. And then we'd be like, all right, now we need to talk. So without further ado, do you want to do the intro?
Absolutely. Missy is a very interesting person. She is a native of Carmel, Indiana, and a 1989 Carmel High School grad, where she was a standout swimmer and an inductee into the Indiana High School Swimming and Diving Hall of Fame. Missy then went on to become an NCAA Division I swimmer for the University of Michigan, where she received an undergraduate degree in psychology. She then went on to receive her law degree from Indiana University McKinney School of Law. After taking a break from her legal career to raise her children, Missy decided to pursue the training to become a life coach and discovered her true passion for helping others make the most of themselves. Currently, Missy is a success, performance, growth consultant, and mindset mastery certified professional coach who also works with athletes, coaches, teams, and the institutions that support them, while also being the head coach of the Garin Catholic High School swim team. Missy is an Olympic trials, Boston Marathon, and Ironman participant. She is the mother of two, her daughter Rachel and her son Andrew. She also happens to be, obviously, Dr. King's sister. Welcome, Missy.
Yay! Okay, so
thank you for having me.
Yeah, exactly. That's you. Are you tired reading?
Yeah,
listening to all that?
okay.
You're like, oh, okay. I've done enough for my life. That's what I always think when I read everyone's bios. I'm like, man, these people are really, accomplished. And I mean, it's funny because you incrementally go through all of that over your lifespan. But then when you look at it in aggregate, like the total amount, it's like, holy crap, yeah. No wonder.
Right.
You did do a lot when you
I remember when somebody presented the idea to me, when you write your resume, pretend like you're somebody else. Like cover the name at the top and act like you're writing the resume for
somebody else,
a friend, and you see yourself in a whole new light.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we're super excited to have you here today. There's a lot of things that I think you can offer, the public in general. But I mean, especially now that you're coaching at Garin and with your coaching background and then also the life coaching, it's really interesting talking to you about all the concepts that you're putting together. And I'm just so excited about you know how I feel about Garin. So then when I was like, you are going to be at Garin. I mean, this is going to be a big deal. I don't think people really understand how big of a deal this is. And so, and I think people, especially since last year was your first year, really got a taste of, what this could be or the potential that could come from all of this. And so that's one of the super reasons I'm super excited about it. So anyway, okay, so on to some really good questions. Okay, so do you want to lead off first?
Well, I think, kind of in the same vein as Emily's talking about the effect that you can have on other people's lives, especially during these trying times, and how people approach. I think that a lot of times people's thoughts are their reality, and their perception is what guides them. I saw something yesterday about to that point that what you're thinking then will guide your attitude, and how it's important to kind of control your thoughts in a positive way. So one of the first questions we had for you was, what are 3 things or however many things people can do and or say to themselves every day to contribute to a more meaningful day, life, mission, whatever?
Well, I'm not specific about like what people can say because everybody's language is different, and what resonates with some may not resonate with another. But I would say the easiest way to start is to begin to understand the concept that you're not your thoughts and that you need to think on purpose. Our thoughts affect our feelings, which influence our behaviors, which then drive our outcomes. So if you go all the way back to the beginning, you really need to feel the way you need to feel to get the stuff done you need to get done to get the outcome that you want to have. And that kind of starts with your thoughts. And we all have thoughts. We have competing thoughts. I mean, how often have you looked in the mirror and one day in the same 1 minute been like, oh, I look good. And the very next minute been like, oh, I look old. And it's like, so they're just competing thoughts. And it's really learning to think on purpose, to latch on to the ones that are going to serve you in the outcomes that you're trying to accomplish.
How do people, though, struggle with feeling like they're fooling themselves?
So I like to say you're not faking it till you're making it. It's a rehearsal of the person you're becoming. Okay. So it's just a dress rehearsal. Right. Try it on, get used to it, practice it lots, and then eventually it becomes integrated. Right. And mindset work is like anything else. You cannot buy a gym membership and not go to the gym and get the results. So once you have a tool, you have to practice it daily in order to get the results you want from it. So when you're trying to integrate a concept into your being, it requires you to work at it, practice it, and do it over and over again until it becomes.
So is it as simple as if someone's struggling, say, for instance, we're using veterinary medicine. Okay, so, that imposter syndrome. Do you know about imposter syndrome? Where so if someone's struggling with imposter syndrome or feeling like they're not good enough to be here or doing a job or being a veterinarian or whatnot, how is it really as simple as saying, I am good enough. I do have the skill set. I am qualified enough to be here. So stop thinking I'm not. Like, how do you get the person to shift their mindset?
Right. Well, it is as simple as that. But us as human beings like to have processes. Give me 4 steps to getting there. Make it more complicated than it really needs to be. So on the essence, it is that simple. It's a matter of shifting, but you also have to discover where you're blocking yourself, because imposter syndrome really doesn't exist. It's a form of resistance. So it's about what you're thinking. We all live, we don't live in reality. We live in the reality of our perceptions, like what you were talking about, Rich. Our perceptions, our ideas, the meanings we place on things, the assumptions we make, the narrative we're telling between our ears. That is directing everything. So you need to, if you're thinking, I don't belong here, you need to start peeling back the layers and thinking, what is it about me that's not allowing me to feel like I belong? What is the story I'm telling myself? Is it because I got the average grade, the C in zoology, that I didn't feel like, what meaning did I put on that circumstance that is creating this narrative for me? And so that's, it's kind of uncovering all of that. And we all have blind spots. We can't necessarily see for ourselves what those are or what's holding us back. But I would suggest that anybody that doesn't have absolutely everything they want in life is because of themselves. And it's because of something that's keeping them from themselves from attaining it.
Darn it.
Darn it. No, it's like the best thing and the worst thing you can hear.
Can't blame those other things anymore.
It's like, it's the best and worst. You are the problem and the solution. In all things. And so it's figuring out, where are you in your own way?
Isn't it funny, because so many of the concepts I've heard you mention, so many things are seemingly so self-evident, but then, in practice they're so difficult. Like there was a, you know what I mean? Like you'll say, people will say, well, you're the creator of your own destiny. Well, obviously, but it's so difficult to take that and then create your own destiny sometimes. You know what I mean? It's obvious, like, I don't know, whatever it is, if you want to run a marathon, you have to train, but it's a lot harder to actually go train it. You know what I mean?
Well, I would challenge you on that as being a limiting belief. Like you've decided that it's hard. When you are in alignment with what is best for you, becomes exponentially easier. So if it's really something that is you can align your energy behind, if your job is something that your energy is aligned behind, it's very easy to go to work every day. If it's a job that for whatever reason your energy isn't aligned behind it, it's like you're pulling 1,000-pound truck behind you on your way into work every day. So I don't know that it's hard. I think people, again, make it harder than it needs to be. And that's because we're human. I mean, that is kind of the human predicament.
Yeah. I think, do you think that it matters if somebody starts that talking to themselves and feeding themselves positive information, or, you know, the phrasing, does it matter if they start when they're young and that's who they become, like, you know what I'm saying? Or does it, and so then it's less difficult when they're older? Like, do you see anything like from, like, okay, if people are, you know, 5 or 6 years old, or 7th or 8th grade, or high school or college, like, is there some place when they're growing that you can make an impact?
I think that everybody is on a journey, right? It's all becoming.
Mm-hmm.
There is no arrival, right? So everybody's having the journey that exactly as they need to be having it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think as a parent, as I've learned some of the principles in coaching, I've shifted my parenting. And I don't know, my kids are only 14 and 16. I don't know if they're reaping the benefit of that
right.
or not yet.
Yeah.
But I certainly think that pointing out where they're self-sabotaging or where they're getting in their own way, and helping them discover paths to, like, figuring that out and looking at what are the different possibilities. Because the minute you get in this situation and you're like, this is the outcome, you've collapsed your energy around the ability to see other possibilities. So, like, kind of teaching them to stay open and that not prejudging what would be the right outcome before the outcome happens, but to trust that the outcome that's happening is the best for them, which is hard sometimes, like when your kids don't make a sports team, or, you know, trusting that the universe is conspiring for your success. So whatever was happening is happening for your best interest, and really getting them to believe that idea, and also to hone in on having their own internal guidance system, their own GPS system, learning to quiet. And that was, you know, quieting your mind is the second thing I would say is stepping into your power. Learning to sit in that gap where there is nothing coming in, and really hearing the voice that's behind all the thoughts. Because I think in so much of what we do today, it's about the person that's the lead demanding what we're doing, and that trains us out or conditions us out of listening to ourselves. And I think that's true in sports, especially today. The coach, it's very hard to coach from a perspective of everybody gets to think for themselves, because it's hard to be a leader in that kind of environment. But really what you are wanting people to do is think for themselves, so that it's inspired action instead of external motivation. And when people learn, when your kids can learn to make choices from a place of truly knowing and being internally guided, versus what their parents think they should do, what society says is right for them, then they're living more authentically for themselves.
Less disappointment later.
Right. They're not retracking some of the stuff that, you know, all of us.
I was going to say us.
have spent years doing.
Exactly.
I mean, I just think it's a difference in how we're raising our kids. Honestly, like, our society is a more conscious, evolved society now. I mean, we've all heard of, you know, Brene Brown. Well, there's a lot of people that have heard of Brene Brown. Yeah. Oprah's had everybody on. We all grew up on Oprah's suggested book list, you know, coming on the TV. You know, Gary Zukav, Michael Singer, Tony Robbins, John Maxwell. They're all people that are more household names, and those are all great introductions into mindset work. But I think I speak for most coaches when I say that we're interested in cultivating a society where people are their own guru. They are coming. All their answers are coming from within.
Right.
Instead of just looking for these gurus, you know, Deepak Chopra and all. They're all wonderful, but those are all tools where you're still looking to somebody else to tell you how to do it.
Right.
And so we're now evolving, because we've all been introduced and we get it.
Right.
And now we're wanting to do it for ourselves.
Right.
And so that's why, you know, it's a kind of exciting time. I see, you know, even what's happening in the world today with the pandemic and, you know, anti-racism, and everybody's becoming more socially conscious. And as we want to do better for other people, the best way to do that is to be better ourselves.
Right. That's good.
Yeah.
So
That's very good.
I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No, it's so interesting you mentioned, because you said something a second ago about people seeking out gurus, and there's a guy that I've listened to for a long time, Gary Vaynerchuk, and he'll say things
Gary
like
V. Harris.
Harrison's
like, here we go.
No, but he'll say things like, "Stop listening to me and go do." I mean, use the tools that you've gained and then go do, but don't seek out guidance from others in lieu of action yourself.
Right. And you can't just have the knowledge.
Right.
Just having the knowledge doesn't do anything for you. You actually have to go take the steps and call yourself on your own hooey and, and actually get, take the action steps to integrating it all.
Right. It's interesting.
Who do you think was of your coaches, like your Michigan coach, was there somebody that kind of had a grasp of that when you were coming up in all the different sports and things like that? Or like not even, maybe it wasn't even a coach, maybe it was somebody else, but somebody that kind of inspired you in that way?
I definitely think Jim at Michigan, I don't necessarily know that he talked to us about this, but he was very willing to trust that you knew the answer for yourself.
Right.
Like if you said you weren't feeling well,
then he believed that.
Then he
you
never, no question. Yeah,
right,
no question. What do you think you need to do?
Right.
I'm like, why are you asking me? You're my coach. You're supposed to tell me what I need to do.
Right.
So it was a real shock to my system to actually have to make the choices for myself.
Right.
I was so used to being in an environment where maybe not necessarily the coaches would make the choices for me, but I certainly didn't feel comfortable going
away from
whatever everybody else was doing, whether it, and so much of what we're doing is we're conditioned. The fable of the two fish swimming and the third fish swims up and says, how's the water? And the two fish that were together are like, what's water?
Right.
So like we're so on autopilot. We're so conditioned to what we're doing. We don't even notice what's going on around us. We're the environment that we're in. So
yeah, I would say the same thing, that it was hard. I don't know if I would have ever felt comfortable choosing a different alternative. Like, you know what I mean? Even if given the option, like, I don't know whether that's like your guilt or your, like, if we were raised so much on, you show up, if you show up, you do that. You know what I mean?
Well,
like
think
all
about
that.
all the parenting that was
You
happening. Like we were either products of, or our parents were products of, children seen, not heard. You sit quietly, mind yourself, don't speak out, don't be the lone, the wanderer, don't be the person that causes problems, don't be somebody that's different.
Right.
And I think now we're into more of a culture where people are, it's okay to be different.
Right.
And it's okay to do what you need to do to honor yourself.
Right.
So, I mean, I think it was just what we knew then versus what we know now.
No. Yeah. It's interesting to watch that and the evolution of that.
And how people are a product of their, like you say, it's interesting to see different generational influences, and how the subsequent generations are affected, but then kind of create their own path. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, the drip. I mean, like what the beliefs, we joke all the time about Dad saying that you have to cut the lawn every different direction, right? That's a belief system that we grew up. I was shocked when I stepped out of our house and realized that isn't everybody's belief system about how to cut grass. And I'm joking, but I'm dead serious. It was like, what?
Right. We don't do it that way?
Right. Yeah. You didn't know? That wasn't something that everyone in your family preached about?
Right. Right.
And so I think it's, some of that. Some of it is what you're conditioned to, your belief system of your parents. I think especially as women, the belief system of where women fall in society and what women are capable of doing, and what grandma thought she could do versus what mom thought she could do versus what we thought we could do.
Right.
She evolved over the years, but there are drips of those beliefs that come in that sometimes get in your way. And if you're not taking a minute to say, where did I first come into that belief? And is that serving me and where I want to go? Then you get hoodwinked and you just follow along in the water without realizing you're in water.
Right, exactly. How do you think, or what do you think that people can gain by using like a life coach or, a coach for even just work or athletics, or, what is the true purpose or the benefit behind doing so?
I truly believe that, like when I said earlier, if you don't have everything in your life the way you want it to be, then you need to start with your personal growth work. And whether that's you're doing it on your own or you're working with a coach, the benefit of working with a coach is you have an advocate at the table in that committee in your head that is pulled right up to the table and has a seat until you can start to scoot your chair in and be there at the table for yourself.
Right.
And they can point out your blind spots. They can see things that you're, they're kind of like the non-judgmental, observational self until you can become it for yourself. Like, hey, did you notice that you're doing this over here?
Right.
How do you feel about that? What would you think about changing it? What would be different for you if you changed that belief? How much different would you be living your life if you believed that girls could be veterinarians? You know,
Right.
if that's something you didn't believe initially,
Right.
how different would your life be if you changed that belief?
Right.
So there's that. It's learning how your brain works, because when you learn how it works, you learn where you're being sabotaged. Resistance is a perfect example. We feel resistance and we immediately go, oh, that must not be for me. And when you do enough work, you start to go, resistance, the growth edge. That means I'm growing. It's something,
Right.
I'm doing something that's unfamiliar to me. Because if it was familiar, you would have already done it.
Right.
And so this is exciting. I'm there. I'm about
Right.
ready to expand my consciousness, move
Right.
to a new level, see myself differently,
Right.
behave differently. And so I think working with a coach, they're kind of that person for you. And they're, they're just able to see more from the outside and work with you, hold you accountable as you need to be, give you the tools so that when you discover this is what's in my way, they have tools to help you break through that. And honestly, it's like having a coach, like an athletic coach to some degree, that's your best advocate in the success and your performance, but it's not like an athletic coach in the sense that it's not based on the agenda of the coach. It's based on your agenda. You're
Right.
driving it. And it's just
Yeah.
a partnership
Right.
in getting what you want.
Yeah. I think there's just so many ways. Like, we read the book, the War of Art. That's
Stephen
where he's talking
Pressfield,
about
Resistance.
resistance. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you're saying that part about knowing when you're feeling the resistance, that's the part you grab a hold of.
Well, and when you learn that your brain is a tool that is there to help keep you safe, right? Like, your brain only wants to be in familiar states. That's
Right.
the way it can keep you safest, easiest,
Right.
right? I know this territory. It is totally fine. I know exactly how to navigate this.
Right.
And instead, when you're trying something new, your brain goes, DEFCON 5 alert. She's getting ready to do something new. All
Right.
hands on deck. Stop her.
Right.
So
Yeah.
then they do all
Right.
the crazy stuff that comes in. You have an anxiety attack. You have, all the sabotaging thoughts. Whatever it is that your body does to you to make you stop.
Right.
And you really have to be like, oh, okay, that's what's happening.
Right.
And I can choose to be available for that, or I can choose to grow.
Right.
And it becomes more simple, like the
Yeah.
choice, because the freedom of the choice is the liberating
Empowering.
aspect of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's empowering.
yeah.
Have you ever had a situation where like a point of resistance with someone? You know it as a coach, but they don't quite know it, and they resist. They push back. You know what I mean? Like, if you know this is a roadblock, but then they'll push back and say that's not really. But as a coach, you're like, this is
Yeah, I mean, that's
You just have
100%
to
of
work
what
them.
coaching is.
Right, right.
If you knew it
Yeah.
already for yourself,
right.
you'd be doing it.
Right.
So, yes, it happens all the time. And coaching is designed, at least the program that I went through is designed to help people come to their own answers by asking questions. So you become very skilled at asking the questions that bring people to their own answers in that situation.
Got it. Okay, it's interesting.
Yeah.
And I think we really are, it's very hard to see ourselves in our own circumstances and
Right.
see what's really holding us back.
Right.
And how different it would be if you did X, Y, or Z differently.
Right.
And I mean, and truly, like, it's our life. It's your
Right.
life. So, like, when people are like, should I try meditation? Should I try? Like, throw everything at it.
Right.
Like, what do you have to lose? You end up
Right.
getting the life you want through
Right. What's the-
something.
right.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
don't stop. Like, don't settle for whatever it is that you're settling for. There's no reason to. It's your life. You only get
what
this.
you're just it. Right.
Which becomes more and more apparent with each passing year.
Yeah, right.
Getting that day back.
It's dwindling away. Oh,
So, and I
gosh.
think probably like going back to like what people can do, I would say thinking on purpose. I would say the internal GPS system, like finding your own, and then also the idea of tending to your own vibration, because we're energetic beings, and we're all have a vibration, and it's kind of what people mean when they say like they have good energy or they don't, or they suck the energy right out of the room. Like we are vibrational beings, and your vibration is actually what is attracting things into your experience. So tending to it becomes very important, because you can't say, for example, I don't know. The easiest thing I can think of is like, I forgive that person. You cannot say those words and not have that belief integrated into your system, because the vibration is still this. And so this is the magnet. So you're still attracting more of this, even though you're saying this.
Right.
So you really have to learn to integrate what you need. Like, you need to be vibrating at what you're trying to attract, at the same level of what you're wanting to attract. I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of existential and out there, but being conscious beings, we vibrate, and our tending to our energy is really important. And that's why, like, things like when people say the right answer for you is the right answer for everyone, well, that comes from the idea that you're tending to your vibration. If it feels right and in flow for you, your vibration is up here. If you're doing this down here and it doesn't feel right to you, then you're vibrating down here, and suddenly that is affecting the energy of everything around you.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, I know it's like out there.
No,
it's like kind of.
So how do you fit? So let's just say that you are operating down here, but your energy is up here. How do you get the two in sync?
Well, right. So like that's even your. So I like to.
Don't mean to overcomplicate it. Sorry.
No. One of the things that I like to work with people in is creating the vision, and I'll say of her, right? Because it's speaking of myself. Like I create a vision of her, the woman I'm becoming. And you have to demote your current self, your ego, your fear, out of the decision maker job, and put the her and the vision into that role. And so you have to start operating from the perspective of the person you're trying to become. So if you want to be a veterinary owner, you have to make decisions from the perspective of a veterinary owner. That means that person is willing to invest in x-ray equipment. That person is willing to hire other people to grow their business. That person. So you're making the decisions from that perspective, not from the person you currently are, because you can't get to here with this belief system.
Right.
You get here with this belief system.
Right.
So if you're still operating over here with these beliefs, this energy, you're never going to get to here. You have to decide that you're going to start to adopt and make decisions from the place of the person you want to become. So having a vision about what you're trying to become, the her and the vision, the him and the vision, whether it's I want to live with more grace, self-grace, or I want to live in more ease and flow. Well, then you start thinking, okay, well, that's a feeling I want to have. And so how can I bring more of that into this very moment? How can I bring more of that into this decision I'm getting ready to make? So
It's like a paradigm shift, kind of.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
Now, one of the questions, because we did the vision board
Yes,
group
yeah,
with you, one of the questions you had asked, which I think because we were running out of time because all of us in that group are chatty and everything else, but you had talked about money. How is money a, like, I don't know, like, that was clearly that must be something that people talk about or manage or think about or emotionally tied to, because you had asked the question, what is your relationship with money, or how do you feel about, there was something that was like an emotional like question about money. And after I had done that with you, I was like, I wonder if that's a really like pivot, like a thing for people, like how they view it or how they
Huge stressor, I'm sure.
like, so as far, like, go into that a little bit. I know that's not like I just thought of that when we were talking about the vision.
No. So like, let's just start. What's the first belief you have that comes to mind about money?
Not enough of it.
Exactly. Okay, so you think, and that's honest, or you're just trying to be funny? like,
no, I'd say that's honest for him.
So if you come from the perspective that there's not enough, there won't ever be enough, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it is affecting. So you have the thought, it's never enough. It's never going to be enough. So then what does that do to your energy? And you start feeling all the feelings, the panic, the anxiety, the stress, all the things. So then what do? Your actions reflect those feelings. You either, quit, give up, you get frustrated, you go back through the spreadsheets and come up with 800 more ways, whatever
You really are talking to me, aren't you?
whatever your thing is, your
Right.
behavior reflects that, and then the outcomes reflect that. So if you're someone that deflated all your energy around it because you were feeling really cruddy and frustrated about it, then your outcome reflects no change, right? Mm-hmm. If you believed that money was energy,
Right.
and that you have to put it out in order to get it back.
You've been talking to her, haven't you?
No, just
No,
how
I'm joking.
different. No, I have no idea what your beliefs are.
No, but that's true. That's exactly how I feel.
Or even better, if you believe
Yeah.
that if you put out energy and you
Right.
put it out with the mindset that it would come back tenfold, how different would it feel?
Yeah, it is.
Right.
It's a completely
And
different.
what would change for you in your reality?
Right.
And how would you feel about when you do have to spend money on something?
Right.
And we have so many limiting beliefs about money. Like, I mean, one of mine was that, like, money comes through hard work.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? Like, you start to get older and you're like, Like,
Right.
I've seen lots of people with money that didn't work that hard to get it.
Right.
I mean, the beginning of, like, random success because
right.
of a YouTube channel or something.
Right.
And you might argue that those people were doing tons of work behind the scenes before that video ever became famous. But
Right.
at the same time,
A lot of it is, though, just that it's very chance. You know what I mean?
right. And some of it is this idea that then you spend your time working hard. You do all the things that are hard because, I'm going to go in and I'm going to work from 6 to 8 p.m. and I'm going to be the hardest worker.
Yeah.
But maybe you could have done it working,
Yeah.
10 to 6.
Right.
And changed what you charged or changed
Right.
who you hired to help build the practice. I mean, you know what I mean? There's a million ways around it. So it's starting to see things with more potential and possibility.
Right.
What are the other possibilities in this? What if the exact opposite of that were true? Whatever the belief is. Starting
Right.
to ask yourself those questions. What if investing in myself, like for somebody that's wanting to do personal growth work, what if, they say, oh, I don't know if I can afford it. I don't know if I should spend my money on that. What if investing in yourself caused everything in your life to be at the level, the experience that you
Right.
wanted to have, the reality you wanted to have? Your investment came back tenfold in how you saw yourself, the excitement in your life, the
Right.
money you had because you went out and found your empowerment and chose the stock options that really resonated with you and
Right.
whatever. It just
Right.
changes everything. So it's really looking at those beliefs about money, and money's a tricky thing because so many people, whether it's I don't want to talk about it, and see, there's meaning that we created behind all this. Hold on a second.
I heard a guy say once recently, he said, happiness is the new millionaire. And I thought it was interesting because you do have that focus on, he's like, it's much better to be fulfilled than it is to be unfulfilled, fulfilled within whatever that means.
Well, you can't have what you want without feeling it first. We've been raised to think that if I get this, conditional happiness. If I get this, then I'll be happy.
Right.
If I lose this, then I'll be beautiful. If I have these degrees, then I'll be worthy. Whatever. We've been raised on this conditional, this idea of conditional
Right.
emotion. And really what it is you have to feel the feeling first to attract that. I have to feel worthy in order to go get the degrees. I have to to attract, I guess I should say, to attract that into my life, not to go get the degrees, because you can go get them either way, but you're still not going to feel worthy of having them.
Right.
So
I see.
it's like, I have to feel happy
Right.
to attract this experience.
Got it.
I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Well,
but
it's funny. What I'm hearing is you, like, say, for instance, if self-worth is an issue and you're getting the degrees, maybe once you address the self-worth issues, maybe you don't need the degrees.
yeah,
Maybe,
or,
you know what I mean?
or you'll feel worthy of them when you have
Right.
them. Because what happens is the imposter syndrome, I'm not worthy, is because really it all, and I mean, there's a million babies from the one daddy of I'm not worthy. There's a million flavors of that message.
Oh, God,
and
yeah.
it comes out
Right.
all over, right? And so it's like, which flavor are you having today?
Yeah.
And so, but you have to feel worthy in order to have to attract the experience of worthiness
Right.
in what you're doing.
So is that part of what you talk about, how you have to throw out there what you want, you know, for yourself, or you have to put it out in the universe?
So going back to the vision boards,
Right.
or even doing, I'm a big believer in my house. We talk about dreams because the more you,
Yes.
the more
Yeah, I
you
talk
put
about
them
that.
out
Like
there.
literal dreams or just dreams?
Yeah,
No,
Aspirations?
no, like
Aspirations.
dreams
Okay.
for yourself.
Got it.
I guess you could talk about the other dreams too. There might be messages in those. I don't know.
You don't
I
know
don't do
about
dream
that
work, but it's possible. Because you have to. You're putting out into the universe, so the universe knows how to.
Help you.
How to
Yeah.
get in line with what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's also conditioning your nervous system to familiarize it with that happening. Because we have emotional addictions. Like if you were raised in a house with chaos, you'll inevitably find yourself doing behaviors that recreate the emotion of chaos. If you're raised and, if you're conditioned to, I don't know, there are a million things that people are conditioned to, but
Right.
if you're conditioned to like unworthiness, like somebody telling you all the time, you will go into almost every situation and do a behavior. As soon as you start to feel worthy in one area, you'll create unworthiness in
somewhere
another.
else,
Yeah. So it is, and it's an emotional addiction. So it's like learning and familiarity. It's like, I want to go back to that because my body, that's where my body feels comfortable because it's familiar. It's not necessarily preferred. It's familiar, and my system knows what to do with familiarity. Going back to the beginning,
That's so
DEFCON
weird.
5.
They're
Yes,
so complex.
yes.
I've heard of that. Like sometimes they'll say, if you had a negative experience as a young person, maybe you'll be attracted to that kind of person later, but it's not good for you. But for whatever reason, you keep going back to the negative because it's comfortable.
Yeah, it's familiar.
Right.
Yeah, and so like, and then also like the meanings we put on things affects everything. So like if you look at, let's just say conflict, and I don't know, what does conflict mean to you? What's a belief about conflict?
Oh boy, what's a belief about conflict?
Lots of yelling and screaming.
No.
Well, right, but what about that, Harrison? Perfect. So yelling and screaming is conflict, and what does that mean to you?
Makes me sad.
It makes you sad. Okay, it's really uncomfortable for you, right? And if you
Yes.
grow up with a belief, or like your belief may be that conflict leads to arguing, okay?
Right.
So if I grow up with the belief that conflict leads to being heard,
All right.
or that the only way I'm heard is through conflict, then suddenly you have two people. And what conflict really is nothing other than two people having a difference of opinion.
Right.
So when you take the meaning out, it's a very neutral thing.
Right.
And so then we each come at it from our belief system, right? And one person, in this example, me, I'm saying I can't be heard unless I'm screaming, unless we're
Right.
conflicting. And your belief system is saying when there's conflict, it's bad. It's really bad. Abort.
Right.
Abort.
I gotta
okay?
get out of this.
Right. And so
Right,
then
yeah.
you can't. But if you come from it from the idea that everything is neutral until we assign meaning to it, then you're
Right.
suddenly like, okay, what they're doing is based on their meaning, and what they're doing is based on their meaning.
Right.
And so kind of trying to explore, like, where did I get the idea
Idea.
that meaning, kind of going back and
Right.
thinking about where you've assigned meaning to things when nothing really has meaning until you
You
assign it
assign it,
meaning.
right.
And our brains love to do that. We are meaning-making machines.
Right.
You know, we have a stimuli.
We have to have a
it goes in.
right.
We create a meaning,
A reason
around
for
it.
it,
It affects all our beliefs and thoughts and actions
Yeah.
afterward, going forward. So you know, you go through your whole life making sure that you have no conflict, doing whatever it takes to have no conflict. And me, with the belief of that you need to yell or scream, goes through all their life like standing up and, you know, wanting to be heard. So it's just a difference in meaning that you put on something. And neither is wrong, but you might start to recognize that, oh, I put that meaning on there, and that actually kept me from this, and this.
Right.
And next time that I see conflict, I'm going to come from it this way, so that the
I don't miss
possibility
out
might
on
be
this.
this.
Right.
Yes. And someone from a different perspective, the exact same thing.
Right.
You know, where did the person who thinks that you have to yell and scream miss out on an opportunity because they weren't weren't willing to accept the idea that they could be heard without it.
Right.
So it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, just really understanding that, you know, you and I could have the exact same, like, watch the exact same thing growing up, like,
and assign two different
totally different meanings to it.
Right.
Yeah, and it's really quite fascinating when you step back and go, wait, what meanings am I assigning to things?
Right.
And money is the perfect example of that. Like,
Yeah.
what meaning did I assign to owning a house?
Right.
You know, I thought owning a house was like,
Right.
you've arrived, right? And then I look at all the stuff that you have to do to own a house, and I'm like, who arrived and where?
I want my apartment back.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, it's really examining,
Right.
stopping, pausing, thinking about, no, wait a minute. Why am I going about this way?
Right.
And sometimes you can't see it for yourself.
Right. So that's why you have somebody to help.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then the money thing is, I mean, you have to declutter the old beliefs. You have to do the new mindset work. Like, I don't know. One of the things that I use daily is I look in the mirror and I say, this is what a woman who, I don't know, let's say when we're talking about money, this is what a woman who's a millionaire looks like. Right here. This is what she looks like right here. And it's really starting to change.
Yeah.
And if you can't believe, so going back to the beliefs, and I know we've kind of been all over the place, and I'm sorry because I'm a ping pong thinker.
No,
no,
this
it's
is good.
good.
Yeah.
It's good.
But going back to the beliefs and when they're not integrating. So you may say, I'm a marathon runner. Well, you don't really believe that right now, right? I don't believe I'm a marathon runner. But you can use a bridge belief. I'm willing to learn how to be a marathon runner. I'm willing to accept the training program to be a marathon runner. I'm willing to learn how to believe I'm that. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to do the things necessary to believe it. So that's true for anything. So if you want to believe that you're a millionaire or you're capable of making $1 million and you can't say, I'm the kind of person who makes $1 million, then you can say, I'm willing to learn to do what I need to do. I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to see what I can't see that's right in front of me that will make me that millionaire. Those kind of things. Until you can step, because it's like you can't run the marathon tomorrow, but you can run a mile tomorrow.
Right.
And then you can run 5 in 5 weeks.
Right.
So it's bridge stepping those beliefs into the one you want to ultimately have.
I wonder if you run into cases where people think they want something, and then after they start down that path, they're like, this isn't really what I want.
I think that's true for everybody, because as you evolve,
Right.
so does what you want to evolve.
Right.
And so does your ability to have what you want without actually, because we really don't want the things. We want the feelings that come with the things that we have associated coming with those things. So you can, if you say, I want to be a millionaire because I want to have freedom. Mm-hmm. And then you stop and realize that having the $1 million isn't impacting your freedom. Really, the choices you're making,
right?
And your failure to acknowledge that that you can make choices at any given time.
It's that house you bought. It's limiting your freedom. That's the problem.
The house that I need to go back to the apartment.
It is funny as you get older, though. You start to look at the simplicity, and you'll talk freedom. There was a guy talking about this yesterday on the show I was listening to, and he was talking about with all this stuff going on with living in the cities versus out of the cities, and how a lot of times living in cities limits your freedom a lot. I mean, and the cost benefit to both. Mm-hmm. And where his point was similar to what you're saying, is that it's not the city that's limiting. It's you choosing to be there. It's your choices that are limiting your freedom.
Yes, and 100%. Like we go back to the beginning, right? Everything in your life is the way it is because of you.
Right.
And it's really realizing what's your responsibility and what you created, and saying to yourself, well, okay, you can, I don't know, let's think of something. I lost my job. That's not my fault. Well, what did you do that led up to losing your job?
Right.
Or I'm married to somebody that doesn't treat me nice. Well, you're choosing to stay.
Right.
You chose the person to begin with. You chose not to see the signs. You chose whatever. So you can now choose to continue to stay. You can choose to try to work on it. You can choose to see it differently. You can choose to not be offended so easily. Whatever. There's choice in everything.
Right.
And what you've decided to accept is, I didn't choose the job as a waitress. Well, you did. There's nobody else going to work for you.
Right.
There's nobody else serving the tables. There's nobody else cashing those checks. You're doing it. So unless somebody put a gun to your head and said you have to do this in order to stay alive, there has been some choice on your part in what you're willing to accept and what you're available for.
That's one of the first things I remember reading Stephen Covey's book years ago, the Habits of Effective People, and it's a common theme in other books that I've read about the importance of choice and how empowering it really should be to say I'm making this choice.
Yes.
Because the alternative is what, like to your point, a job. The alternative to not having this job is to quit this job, and I'm choosing to stay here. So once you own that, it makes it a lot easier to self-correct, to say,
Yes.
okay, I'm choosing to stay here, but I don't really dig it. So what can I do to
Yes.
make that shift over? Instead of things constantly, the paradigm that things are happening to you.
Absolutely.
Because they're happening because of the choices you're making, not necessarily to you.
Yes.
So anyway, I've always thought that was a really interesting thing that I've tried. You try and explain this to the kids in other contexts, school, whatever. It's like, well, you didn't get a good grade because you didn't put it in. There's certain inputs that didn't go in. You chose not to put those inputs in there. Now make the choice to put the inputs in later.
Yes.
And in whatever context.
Right, and it's not being at the mercy of all these external things.
Right.
It's really being whole and complete on the inside and understanding and being empowered in your choices and the ability to make choice at any given time that leads to really the feeling of freedom and a more purpose-filled life.
Right.
Because when you're choosing, everything feels better.
Yeah. You feel more, like you're in control.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so to switch gears just ever so slightly.
Sure.
Coaching at Garin, how do you, because if you're wondering whether or not your child should be involved in swimming, they should. And because they're going to benefit from all of this as well as the sport. But anyway, okay, so how do you incorporate, because there's a couple questions for you I have to ask you. Not every coach has this base of knowledge. Mm-hmm. So this is a real gold mine for our student athletes. So how are you using that for them as a way of positioning them? Because one of the things I think Garen's really good at is helping people find their true purpose, which a lot of this is also about. So it's almost like the two are made to go together. So how, like when you're coaching them on a daily basis, what are some things that the parents can count on that you're focusing on with them? Like
So I kind of see it more as a connector of dots. Like, I think so many times kids graduate from sports and they don't get how to be in the world without the sport. So, and a lot of that is not because that sports didn't teach them the life skills. It's that they're not connecting the dots between what they're learning and how they relate to life skills. So for example, I'll say, I provide choice a lot. And I'll say, and then when they say to me, well, what do you think I should do? And I'll say, well, if I said to you, what do you want? Peanut butter and jelly sandwich or steak sandwich for lunch? Those are the only two choices. You feel an answer. What do you immediately think in your head? What sounds better to you? Okay. So you would choose steak. And there was something inside of you. So I start pointing out to them, what moved?
Right.
Because that is your first trigger of what your heart really wants you to do.
Right.
So then I start practicing that with them. I'll say, what was that first thing? Don't think about what I want you to do. Don't think about what what you know what's right for you.
Right.
So I start teaching that concept
Yes.
through
Okay.
little choices and connecting that dot that you're actually going to use that now for the rest of your life. That
Right.
peanut butter and jelly or that steak sandwich that you chose, you're going to use that. And I connect that dot for them about how to use it. So when they're saying, so when you sign up for classes this fall and you're trying to decide between zoology and chemistry, what feels right for you? Mm-hmm. Where did the steak sandwich resonate? So where does this answer resonate?
Right.
Because only you know what's best for you, because inherently in everyone else's opinion is a conflict of interest. They cannot separate, no one, even the people that love you the most in the world, cannot separate themselves from your decision making. So why you're going to go ask anybody else what you should do when they have never walked a minute in your shoes
Right.
is really kind of asinine when you think about it. But yet so many of us are taught, well, what are your friends doing?
Right.
What did I mean, and it's just
do you think I
conversational,
should
but
do?
that's
Right.
immediately turning people to the
Is it a
to
way of
outside.
asking people almost like, what do you think I should do? It's almost like an excuse to keep yourself from having to make the decision.
Yeah, that's true too. Yes, there's
It's
some
almost like,
Yes.
now that you're talking about it that way, I'm like, oh, it's almost like you're giving yourself a way out.
Yes. And I think too, like the asking, like for some people asking, like speaking of food, like I like to go to dinner and I'll ask everybody at the table if we're eating out, what are you ordering? Because for some reason, hearing what everybody else is ordering allows me to hear the ping.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, 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 yes.
Right.
Okay. And sometimes I can't get to it without hearing. So
Right.
there has to, you just have to be mindful about what you're doing. Are you
Right.
asking because you don't know and you want somebody else to tell you and
Right.
remove yourself from the responsibility? Are you asking because it helps you hear your own ping? Are you asking? I mean, so it's just being mindful. So then going back to coaching at Garen, we work visualization, because visualization, vision boards, those kind of things are important about to create a blueprint in your brain for what you want to happen. It's part of the dress rehearsal. It's so when I talk to the kids and we're in the middle of the set, I'll say, you know, it's hard to think of. It's
Right.
hard to think of another name when I know the person's name I'm thinking of. But like I'll say, Joe, during this set, I want you to think about being at the third quarter of that 500. Every time we push off the wall, these 4 125s, every time you push off the wall, put yourself in the third quarter of that 500 free. And I want you to practice how you're going to handle the discomfort that's going to happen, because it's
happening.
It's going to happen.
Right.
In order, you know, sports are all about pushing yourself, being uncomfortable, being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
Right.
So it's how are you going to tell your brain how to handle what's happening to your body?
Right.
So it's that kind of stuff. And I try to do it in practice. I try to do it when we're getting ready for meets, set an intention. We do a lot of intention setting. We do, goal setting, but with the idea of what is the feeling you want to have with this goal.
Yeah.
Because it's not the thing itself. You want to look at the wall and feel what? I mean, you want to touch the wall and feel what?
Yeah.
So kind of that mindset. So that it's, and then I'm constantly going back to, and this is how you're going to use this when you go to
you're
college.
Right.
You're going to, when you don't want to study, you're going to think, how do I want to feel when I take my exam?
Yeah.
And then you're going to reverse engineer the outcome you want by doing the things that you need to do in order to have that feeling.
Right.
Instead, we think do, and then I'll have this feeling. No, you need to have this feeling and then go back and
backwards.
do the
Yeah.
things you need to do to create the feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was one thing that I was, because we had Bobby Cox on the podcast and that's something he taught us. I don't know if he knew that he taught us that, but at such a young age to have it consistently for 3 years in a row, someone saying, this is how you want to, do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
do you want to feel this, or do you want to go shopping, or giving us choices? Do you want to go shopping, or do you want to come in the gym and get better? And when you come in, which one, which one do you want to do?
Right.
Well, I want to go to the gym because I want this feeling at the end. I want to feel this way.
And you can feel that way without the thing.
Yeah.
Based on what you've done to lead up to it.
Right.
We know tons of people that haven't attained their goals,
But still,
still feel the fulfillment of having strive for them
Right.
because of what they did leading up to it.
right.
And their ability to, make their mind work in a way that serves them so that they're not then going back to the place of the disempowerment
Right.
or whatever their emotional conditioning is.
Right. Failure or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very neat stuff. Yeah.
Very cool stuff.
Okay. So we probably it's 11:30. So okay, we probably I knew I would go long. All right, we probably should wrap it up. So the last question we always like to ask the guests you ask it because you always ask it better than me.
If you could go back into, I don't know why, because it's one sentence.
I know, but I always mess it up. I mess it up every time. So.
If you could go back in time, what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
This is tricky because there's probably a lot of things that I needed to
Let me just
hear.
sit you down for a couple days.
I probably would have been like, and here's another ring. And wait,
Well,
just a
I'll
second.
wait
Here's another
Before
ring.
you step out the door,
Yeah,
I'll tell you one more.
But I would say there are two things that come to mind. The first is to be patient and to appreciate the journey, because that's all it is.
Right.
It's all the journey, and you have to appreciate every step, exactly where you are, every trial, tribulation, every positive thing. You have to appreciate exactly where you are in the process. So I would say that, so that I wouldn't be so uptight about getting to the end, which never is going to happen. Right. And then the second thing is probably to not take myself so seriously. To bring more levity into everything I do. Like, how could I add 10% more fun to this? Instead of, I'm someone that was always had this epiphany when I realized, like, I don't even enjoy vacation when I'm on vacation because I'm already to the next thing.
Right.
Like, I've always got to be doing the next thing, and just stopping and being like, how can I make this 10% more fun? How can I be more present in what I'm doing so that I can enjoy this exact moment of this?
Right.
Those would probably be the two things, because you don't feel like it's going fast.
It's going fast.
And then it takes off.
We just said that this
like a rocket
weekend
ship.
when we were watching the kids. It was like, wow.
God. Well, because he's going to be 18 in 2 months.
Andrew's going to be, it's just
and
crazy.
then none of it matters,
Right.
right? Absolutely none of it matters. It does not matter whether you got the captain award or not. The thing that upset you so drastically, maybe one year, it doesn't matter where you got starting player of the conference game or whether you had to come off the bench and you scored 20 points off the bench instead of a starting player. None of it matters until you add the meaning to it.
Right.
And so create the meanings that serve you,
There
that
you
work
go.
to where you're becoming.
That is it right there. In a nutshell.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, that's it.
It's that easy.
Okay, so go ahead.
Did you want to plug? You had mentioned
Yeah.
something about a plug for the Facebook group.
Yeah, I wanted you to tell everybody where they can find you with the Facebook group, and of course we'll have on the bottom of when Harrison posts
Show
it
notes.
your your contact and all that kind
Sure.
of stuff. But tell everybody about the Facebook page.
Well, I have a business Facebook page.
Yeah.
It's just Missy McCracken Coaching.
Okay.
Pretty easy. And then my business has gotten busy enough that I'm starting to, my website is being built so that you can do online scheduling. And so you can go to MissyMcCracken.com, and it gives you a way to sign up to get notification when the website is launched. You can email me at missy@MissyMcCracken.com. And then I'm currently running, which I'll run several times throughout a year, a 7-week program that just allows you to participate. We do it all through Zoom calls, and it's weekly lessons. And then we have weekly coaching calls that follow up on that, and then assignments that you can be doing, tools that you can begin to incorporate and practice for the whole week. And if you're having questions about what it is, then you can ask, because it's all live time, like real time. So I'm there, I'm available. And then there's always one-on-one coaching that services that people can
Sign up for.
Yeah,
Or contact you about.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on
Thanks
today.
for coming on.
I
Yeah.
always
it's
learn
fun.
something new every time I get you to talk about this topic. So it's absolutely fascinating to me.
Good.
So thank you very much, everybody. We will be back next month. Yes. Do what? Oh, yeah. I always forget that. Dang it. Where did you? Okay, it's right here. So we give all the guests a little gift bag.
Yay.
So there's some cool socks in here.
Oh, love
for
them.
you.
Thank
So
you.
you can wear
Yes.
those.
Yes,
There you go.
awesome. Thank you.
You're
Always love
welcome.
the ASBC gear. Yes.
So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah.
And we'll see everybody next Monday, hopefully at 10:30 for the next podcast. If you want to catch us, you can catch us on any of the podcast channels. And don't forget to check out asvcmerch.com. I'm Emily King.
I'm Richie King.
And this is,
Missy McCracken.
we'll see you next time. Have a good day.
We're out.
Bye-bye.